I married a poor man on a whim and became the laughingstock of my friends. At my high school reunion, those making $30,000 a year sat at one table, while those making $300,000 sat at another. My husband asked, "And where does someone with 300 million sit?" My name is Anna Sullivan, and I am 30 years old. In the small town where I grew up, that is an age where a woman is already considered an old maid and a burden to her family. I'm not unattractive, and I have a decent profession. I run a small handmade craft studio on one of the side streets where I create and sell my work, but I suppose I've never been lucky in love. 5 years ago, my first love ended because of his family's opposition. They thought I came from an inferior background. It left a deep wound in my heart. Since then, I've been afraid to enter relationships, to take on responsibility, or to be judged by the world. But my biggest fear wasn't staying single. It was the worry I saw in my mother's eyes. My father passed away early, and my mom raised me alone with great difficulty. We lived together in an old brick walk-up, supporting each other. Mom was my everything. However, 6 months ago, her health took a sharp turn for the worse. A dry cough haunted her all night. Her body thinned, and her face grew pale. That evening, finishing an urgent order, I closed the studio later than usual. As soon as I opened the front door, the intense smell of medicinal herbs that had hung in our apartment for months hit my nose. Mom was sitting back in her chair, staring out the window. "Mom, I'm home. Did you have dinner? Why are you sitting in the dark?" I hurriedly put down my bag. Mom turned and gave a weak smile. That smile made my heart stop. "Anna, come here and sit down." I sat beside her and took her hand, which felt like nothing but bone. It was ice cold. "Honey, you're 30 now," she began her usual routine. "Look at Mrs. Taylor from across the hall. She's your age and already has 2 kids. I don't care if you live in luxury. I just want you to find a good husband, someone to rely on if I'm ever gone." "Mom, don't talk like that," I interrupted sharply. "You'll get better soon. I'll make plenty of money and take you to the best hospital. The doctor said it's just exhaustion." Mom shook her head. Tears suddenly appeared in her eyes. She turned, opened a small drawer, and took out a folded piece of paper, handing it to me. "I picked up the results today. I had the tests done again without telling you." I felt my heart jump into my throat. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper. They were results from a cancer center. I didn't understand all the complicated medical terms, but 2 words stood out: cancer and terminal stage, metastasis. The world collapsed around me. I couldn't breathe. The results slipped from my hands. "No, it's impossible. They must have made a mistake at the hospital." "They definitely made a mistake," I whispered as if in a trance. "Anna?" Mom squeezed my hand tightly. "What can we do? This is just my lot in life. I'm not afraid of death. I'm only afraid that when I close my eyes, you'll be left alone. Honey, if you want to be a good daughter, just listen to me this once. I asked your Aunt Sarah to find someone for you to meet. He's a very good, hard-working office clerk. Meet him this weekend. Please." Tears streamed down my cheeks. I was unable to think. Mom's illness was like a death sentence to me. What had I done for her? I had always been stubborn. I hid behind work and fear, turning away from my own happiness and, in doing so, from comforting my mother. "I don't have much time left." Mom's voice broke softly. "Grant me this wish. Treat it as my last gift. If I see you in a wedding dress walking down the aisle, I'll be able to go in peace." Mom's words were like thousands of needles stabbing my heart. The weight of duty was overwhelming. I buried my head in her arms and sobbed. I couldn't say no. I couldn't let her leave with regret in her heart. "Okay, I'll do it," I said through tears. "If it makes you happy and makes you feel better, I'll go to the meeting." Mom breathed a sigh of relief and stroked my head. "You're a good girl, my sweet daughter." I couldn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, tears flowing. Marriage, love. What did any of it matter now? I just wanted to make Mom happy. I was ready to endure anything, whoever this man was, and however my life turned out, as long as Mom could smile. For the next few days, I walked around in a fog. Mom, however, seemed to regain her strength. She bustled about, went to the market, bought fabric for a beautiful outfit for me, and gave me tons of advice. Wear some light makeup. This young man's name is Peter Dawson. He lost his parents early and raised himself. Your aunt says he's very gentle, doesn't drink, and doesn't gamble. With a man like that, you might not be rich, but you'll have a peaceful life. I answered her briefly. I didn't care if my life was peaceful or not. I was simply fulfilling my duty as a daughter. Within a week, Aunt Sarah had set up 9 meetings for me. Mom kept pushing, saying time was running out. The 9 meetings turned out to be 9 disasters. The first man was a balding gentleman at least 20 years older than me, who spent the whole conversation bragging about how many properties he owned. The second was an immature boy, still supported by his parents. The third looked at my craft studio and laughed, saying I was making worthless junk. By the fourth, I was completely exhausted. I felt like a clearance item. But when I returned home and saw Mom, who, besides the smell of herbs, looked at me with hope in her eyes, I didn't have the heart to quit. The 10th meeting was to take place on Sunday at a cafe called the Golden Afternoon. The name suggested a place that was a bit old-fashioned but quiet. Mom ironed a pale silk dress for me. My reflection in the mirror looked pale and tired. "Anna, chin up. Your aunt said this guy is the best one yet. His name is Peter Dawson, and he's just a regular office worker. You're supposed to meet at table number 7 by the window." Mom's voice sounded hurried. "Okay, I understand. Peter Dawson." I sighed, grabbed my purse, and left. I reached the cafe. The Golden Afternoon was, just as I thought, a small and quiet place. I looked around for table number 7. There he was, sitting there. He wore a neat white shirt and black slacks, and his short cropped hair and sharp face gave him a calm appearance. He was absorbed in reading a book and paid no attention to his surroundings. I took a deep breath. "Okay, this is the last time," I promised myself. I approached the table, trying to smile as socially as possible. "Excuse me, are you Peter Dawson? I'm Anna Sullivan, referred by my aunt." The man looked up. He had very bright and deep eyes. He looked at me for a few seconds, slightly surprised, but then smiled politely. It was a very gentle smile. "Yes, that's me. Anna, please have a seat. What can I get you to drink?" I pulled out a chair and sat down. My heart was beating a bit faster. At least this man, unlike the previous 9, seemed decent. "I'll have hot ginger tea, please." "Do you have a cold?" he asked, calling over the waiter. "No, I'm just a little tired," I replied. The conversation started awkwardly. He introduced himself as Peter and said he was a rank-and-file employee at an ordinary company. He had lost his parents as a child. He lived alone in an old apartment building and commuted to work on an old moped. His situation was truly average, maybe even difficult. But I didn't mind. Mom was right. An orphan was even a better choice. I wouldn't have to worry about complicated relationships with in-laws. "Anna," Peter began hesitantly, "you probably heard from your aunt, but I also want to start a stable family." I looked him straight in the eyes. "Peter, I'll be honest. I decided I didn't have time to beat around the bush. My mother is very sick. She has terminal cancer. Her only dream is to see me at the altar before she passes away." Peter stiffened. The book he was holding lay closed on the table. He stared at me. His gaze was no longer just polite, but full of deep compassion. "I know what I'm saying might sound absurd." My voice started to tremble. But I have no other choice. 9 previous meetings ended in failure, and I'm just tired of it. I took a breath and gathered my courage. I opened my purse. I didn't take out lipstick or a mirror. I took out my ID card and a proof of residence. I laid them on the table. I won't ask how much money you have or what kind of house you own. I just need a husband. Someone who will go with me to visit my mother and make her happy. Can you help me? The entire cafe fell silent. I could only hear the thumping of my own heart. The man sitting across from me, Peter Dawson, was completely stunned. He looked from me to the documents on the table. Surely he thought I was crazy. I knew I was crazy. A 30-year-old woman proposing marriage on the first date and pulling out documents. If this story got out, I'd die of embarrassment. Anna, Peter spoke up. His voice held disbelief. Are you serious? Yes, completely serious. Under the table, I clenched my hands so hard they turned white, trying to keep my voice from shaking. I know it's a ridiculous proposal. If you refuse, I'll understand. I'll just get up and walk away as if nothing happened. I looked him straight in the eyes. In his deep gaze, there was no mockery or contempt, only amazement and an emotion I couldn't name. My mother, I felt a dryness in my throat, is the most important person in my life. The doctor said she doesn't have much time left. I can't stand to watch her fade away day by day, worrying about me. I'd rather do something this crazy than let her leave with regret in her heart. Tears flowed from my eyes. I hurriedly turned my head to wipe them away. I was terribly ashamed. Just at that moment, my phone rang. It was Mom. Surprised, I answered quickly. Hello, Mom? Anna, did you meet that Mr. Peter? Mom's voice was weak, interrupted by coughing. Mom, I can't catch my breath. My chest hurts. My heart stopped. Mom, wait, I'll be right there. I'll call an ambulance. No need, she gasped. I just wanted to ask what the boy is like. Are you having a good conversation? I bit my lip. Mom, even in such a state, only worried about me. I looked at the man across from me. He was still watching me. Mom, don't worry. I took a deep breath and made the craziest decision of my life. He's a very nice man, Mom. He agreed. He agreed. To what did he agree? He agreed to marry me, Mom. As I said those words, I felt all my strength leave me. There was silence in the receiver for a few seconds, and then I heard Mom let out a sigh of relief. The lightest sigh I had heard in 6 months. Really, honey? Oh God, thank you. When will you bring him home to introduce him? Yes, right now. We're coming together. Okay, wonderful, I'll be waiting. Mom hung up. I put the phone on the table. I was shaking all over. Looking at Peter, I felt like a criminal. I had made the decision for him and lied to Mom. Peter, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag you into this. My mother... I stood up and hurriedly gathered the documents. I'm truly sorry for taking up your valuable time. I have to go to Mom now. I turned to flee. I didn't have the courage to look him in the face. I was a terrible daughter who lied to her own sick mother. Just a moment, Anna. I heard a calm voice behind me. I stopped, but didn't have the courage to turn around. Peter stood up and walked over to me. Is everything you told your mother true? I was confused. What do you mean? That your mother is really gravely ill and you really want to get married to ease her mind? He asked, staring at me. I nodded and burst into tears again. It's true, but I shouldn't have lied to Mom or forced you into anything. Peter was silent for a moment, and then he did something I completely didn't expect. He sighed like someone who had made a very important decision. Okay, I agree. I was in shock. What? What did you just say? I said I'll marry you, he repeated clearly. My family is also pressuring me to get married, And at least your reason is sincere. I can't stand phoniness." I stood as if struck by lightning. I couldn't believe my ears. He agreed. A man I had met less than half an hour ago, after hearing my crazy story, agreed to marry me. "It's not a joke," I stammered. "Do you know what I said? Marriage, filing documents at the office, becoming a real married couple." "I know," Peter answered with a very serious expression. "And it's not a joke. You don't have time, and I don't want to waste any more on pointless blind dates. I told you I'm also under family pressure. To tell you the truth, I was supposed to meet someone else today, someone my family picked, but she canceled. Maybe it's fate." I was still dazed. Fate, or rather an impulsive step by two people pushed against the wall. But I looked him up and down, white shirt, black pants, a cheap digital watch. He looked like the most ordinary office worker. "Aren't you afraid? What if I'm a bad person or a scammer?" Peter laughed. That light laugh relaxed the tense muscles of his face. "What could you steal from me? I told you I'm an orphan. I live in a rented room, and my salary is barely enough to get by. If you care about money, you've come to the wrong address. And if you want to trick me into love," he looked at me, "you don't look like that kind of person." His words calmed me down a bit. He was right. He said he had nothing. Neither did I. My studio barely made enough to support us. We were two people with nothing. A marriage of 2 zeros might be the safest marriage. Still, I couldn't understand. Just because of pressure? You could find someone better. Peter looked out the window. His gaze became absent. "Anna, do you believe in love?" His question surprised me. "I don't know. I used to." "Me too," he said. "I used to believe, but the women I met were only interested in how much money I had and what position I held. They didn't care who I was. They were ready to play and lie to achieve their goal." He looked at me again. His gaze was deep. "But you're sincere. You said you need a husband for your mother. Even though the reason is absurd, it comes from love for a parent. I respect that. I'd rather marry a woman who doesn't love me but has a good heart than someone who says she loves me but only loves my money." He took a breath. "I have one condition." "What condition?" My heart started beating faster again. "We'll register our marriage just as you want. We'll legally become husband and wife. But it won't be a play. We'll try to live as a real family. Together, we'll take care of your mother and give ourselves a chance to get to know each other and build feelings. Do you agree?" A chance. I hadn't thought about it that way. I just wanted to make Mom happy. But Peter's proposal wasn't charity. It was a serious promise. I looked at him. He wasn't dazzlingly handsome, but he looked sincere and trustworthy. "Yes, I agree," I nodded firmly. "If you trust me, I'll trust you too. Let's try together." "Great," Peter smiled. "So, where are we going now? To your house to introduce me to Mom?" "No, wait a minute," I said. "Since we've already made the decision, let's do it properly. First, the county clerk's office. I don't want Mom to have any doubts. When I bring you home, I want to be able to proudly say, 'Mom, this is my husband.'" Peter seemed a bit surprised by my determination, but then he nodded. "Okay, let's go. I know where we can get this done today, even though it's Sunday." "The office is open on Sunday?" I asked, surprised. "I know someone there," he answered briefly. We left the Golden Afternoon Cafe. Everything still seemed like a dream. I, Anna Sullivan, age 30, had just decided to marry a man I'd known for less than an hour. I didn't know what the future would bring. I only knew I had to do it for Mom. Even as I followed Peter, I was still sound. "Is the office really open on Sunday?" I asked again, still in disbelief. "I know someone there," he repeated. He led me to his moped, an old thing with faded paint. He handed me a simple helmet and started the engine. The sputtering sound felt very real. I hesitantly sat on the back, my trembling hands grabbing the luggage rack. I'm about to become a married woman, and to a man I met an hour ago. Unbelievable. Peter drove very carefully and didn't say much. We reached the office. Just as he said, despite it being Sunday, one of the doors was open. He led me inside. Inside, a middle-aged clerk in glasses with a very serious expression was waiting for us. Good afternoon. Peter bowed slightly to him. The clerk looked at us and handed us 2 forms. Please fill in your personal information. Are you sure about your decision? I took the pen, but my hands were shaking like a leaf. Peter Dawson, Anna Sullivan. I glanced at his form. He was filling it out very quickly. His handwriting was even and legible. Occupation, office clerk. Current residence, apartment building on Green Street. Marital status, single. Everything matched what he said. When the clerk asked one last time, "Are you both doing this of your own free will?" My heart stopped. Free will? I'm doing this for Mom. I looked at Peter. He was looking at me. His gaze was very firm, as if he wanted to reassure me. He nodded slightly. Yes, of my own free will. I heard my own voice, strangely firm. Of my own free will. Peter's calm voice followed from the side. Thump. The sound of the stamp. The clerk handed us 2 marriage certificates. They felt heavier than any craft I had ever created. A few lines of text and a few stamps had changed the course of my life. I had become someone's wife. When we left the office, the afternoon sun was so bright that I involuntarily squinted. Done, said Peter. His voice still sounded dispassionate, calm. We are now legally married. You are now my wife. The way he said, my wife, sounded very natural. I still felt awkward. My moped is over there. He pointed to the old vehicle. It's a bit beat up, I hope you understand. The apartment I live in is also very cramped. As an orphan, I'm used to a simple life. I nodded. It's fine. I'm used to old apartments too. I'm not afraid of hardships. Let's go to my house now. I have to tell Mom quickly. I sat on the back of his moped. This time, perhaps because of the certificate in my hand, I felt more confident. His back wasn't broad, but it was hard and solid. I didn't dare embrace him, so I only gently grabbed a piece of his shirt. The moped sputtered again and took us to the old apartment building where I lived with Mom, to begin a married life about which I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. We walked up the dark stairs of the building. The closer we were to the apartment, the more clearly I heard Mom's cough. My heart ached. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing, but I had no other choice. When I opened the door, the smell of herbs hit me again. Mom, I'm home. Mom was sitting back in her old chair, looking out the window. Hearing my voice, she turned her head. When she saw Peter standing awkwardly behind me, her eyes grew round with surprise. Anna, and this gentleman is... I took a deep breath and pulled Peter forward. I took out the 2 certificates. Mom, this is Peter, my husband. We just got married. I tried to speak as loudly and clearly as possible. Mom fro, boigas. She rubbed her eyes as if not believing what she saw. She looked from me to Peter, and then she fixed her gaze on the documents in my hand. Husband. Peter took a step forward, folded his hands, and bowed very politely. Yes, ma'am. My name is Peter Dawson. I'm Anna's husband. We just came back from the office and came to say hello. His voice was sincere and full of respect. Mom, with a trembling hand, grabbed the arm of the chair and stood up with difficulty. Oh my God, really, Anna? You're not joking with me? I'm not joking, Mom. It's true. Tears began to flow from my eyes. Mom snatched the documents from my hands and opened them with trembling fingers. When she saw my name, Peter's name, and the clear red stamp, she suddenly burst into tears. She sobbed, but they were tears of joy. Oh, thank God. Truly thank God, honey. Mom grabbed Peter's hand. Your name is Peter? Yes. Come here, sit down. Mom sat Peter in the chair and didn't let go of his hand. Son, our Anna is stubborn. Can you handle her? Of course, Anna is a very good person. Peter still looked a little tense. And your family? Parents? Mom started to ask. Ma'am, Peter replied in a calm voice. I'm an orphan. My parents passed away when I was little. I had to manage on my own since I was a child. Now I live in a rented room and work at a company. I was afraid Mom would be disappointed, but it was different. Hearing this, she was even happier. An orphan, that's even better. You managed on your own. That's admirable. I don't care that you're poor. We're poor too. The important thing is that you sincerely love our Anna and take care of her when I'm gone. As she said this, Mom's eyes grew red. Please don't worry. Peter looked Mom straight in the eyes. I'm Anna's husband now. I promise you, I'll take good care of her and protect her. We'll take care of you together. His words surprised us both. We'll take care of you together. Mom kept nodding. Yes, I believe you. Oh, finally I can breathe a sigh of relief. I don't have any more worries. A miracle has happened. Mom, who only this morning was struggling to catch her breath and was weak, seemed to be gaining new energy. She jumped up from the chair. A guest like this in the house, a son-in-law, and I have nothing to eat. Anna, run quickly to the market for some chicken and vegetables. I'll make soup. Mom, you shouldn't. You're sick. Where are you going? I shouted, frightened. Sick? I'm already cured. How can I be sick on such a joyful day? Mom laughed heartily. She turned to Peter. Son-in-law, you sit here. Mom will be right back. Today is a holiday in our house. Looking at my bustling mother, searching for clothes to wear and a shopping bag, I looked at Peter. He was also looking at me. We didn't say a word, but in his eyes, I saw a strange warmth. I whispered so quietly, only he could hear. Thank you. He only smiled slightly. I am your husband, after all. For the first time in 6 months, in our old building, instead of the smell of herbs and sighs, laughter rang out. The day after the visit to Mom, Peter suggested we live together. We're married. We should have our own life. Besides, it's cramped at your mother's. She won't be able to rest peacefully if we live there. My rented place is nearby, so we can visit her often. Mom immediately agreed. Of course, newlyweds should live separately. I'll manage. I'm already healthy. So, I moved. My belongings consisted of some clothes and craft materials. Peter, on his old moped, transported me and a few boxes. His rented apartment was in a similarly old building as my mother's house. Located on the 3rd floor, it consisted of one room and a kitchen combined with a living area. The furniture was very modest, almost poor. An old bed, a fabric wardrobe, a damaged sofa, and a portable gas stove. That was all. It's a bit dirty here. I'm sorry. Peter scratched his head. In reality, it wasn't dirty, just so empty that you couldn't feel human warmth in the place. It's fine, I smiled. It's good that we have a roof over our heads. A little cleaning, and it will be cozy in no time. Thus began our married life, a life more than ordinary. Peter would leave for work every day at 7:30 a.m. on his old moped. He said he worked for a small company producing office supplies. He returned at exactly 6 p.m. At the end of the month, he handed me an envelope with his salary. Inside was $2,500. I'll keep $500 for petty expenses and commuting. You manage the rest and run the household. $1,500 in the city was a very small amount, but I felt warmth in my heart. He trusted me and entrusted me with all the money. I didn't quit my job either. My studio was still open, but I reduced orders to have more time for my family. I cleaned our apartment, hung new curtains, and put out a few pots of flowers. I went to the market, shopped, and cooked. I wanted to breathe warmth into this home. Peter was a quiet husband. He didn't say romantic compliments. He never even bought me a single flower. But he was a very good man. Every dish I prepared, he praised, saying it was delicious, and ate everything. After eating, he always got up and washed the dishes, even when I said I'd do it. "Your hands are tired from doing crafts. I'll do it," he would only say. When I worked late, he didn't complain. He just quietly brought me a mug of warm milk. "Don't work so long. You'll ruin your eyesight." Our life went on peacefully. We weren't rich. We lived very frugally. I never asked him for new clothes or expensive lipstick. On the contrary, with the money earned in the studio, I bought him a few new shirts to replace the worn-out ones. But I didn't complain. I felt peace. After past hurts, I was afraid of big promises. A poor but stable life with Peter gave me a sense of security. Every weekend, we rode the old moped to visit Mom. Peter always remembered to buy a bag of oranges or a carton of milk. He would sit beside Mom, patiently listen to her stories from years ago, and fix the broken fan. Mom, of course, loved her son-in-law more than her daughter. "Our Anna must have saved the country in a previous life to meet a man like you. Good, hardworking, doesn't drink, doesn't gamble. What more could you want?" Looking at my smiling mother and Peter silently fixing appliances, I realized that my crazy decision was the best decision of my life. Mom looked healthy, but she still regularly drank her herbs. The diagnosis of terminal cancer still hung over our family like a black cloud. I still lived in fear that this happiness was so fragile and that Mom could leave at any moment. One evening after dinner, as I sat lost in thought looking at Mom's herb packaging, Peter sat beside me. "Anna," he said softly, "I have an old friend who works as a doctor at the Vita Medical Center. It's a very good clinic." I was surprised. The Vita Center is the most expensive private clinic in town. Where will we get the money for that? "Don't worry," Peter grabbed my hand. "My friend will help. We'll just have the tests done again. I have some savings from before the wedding. Doesn't it seem strange to you? The doctor said it was terminal stage, but Mom has been feeling better lately and has better color." His words made me stiffen. He was right. In the flurry of joy, I had forgotten about this illogical contradiction. How can someone feel better with terminal cancer? But what if... I didn't want to think about it. If it was true, it meant we were living our last moments of happiness. "We have to go there. Regardless of the result, we need to know for sure. Anna," Peter's voice was firm, "we can't live in constant anxiety. Trust me." His determination convinced me. The next day we told Mom we were going for a checkup. Mom complained, asking why spend money since she was already cured. But Peter was adamant. "You must go. It's a request from your son-in-law." Peter didn't take the moped. He ordered a taxi. He said it was so Mom wouldn't get tired. This too seemed strange to me. Such a frugal man, and today he was spending money like this. The Vita Medical Center overwhelmed me. Clean and modern, like a 5-star hotel, without the unpleasant hospital smell. Peter moved through it confidently, as if he knew the place well. He led us to the office of a professor, the head of the department. "Is this your friend?" I whispered. "He looks older and very learned." "No, it's my friend's mentor. I asked him for help," Peter replied. The professor was very kind. He reviewed Mom's earlier medical records and frowned. "This is impossible. Let's do all the tests again." Mom went for a CT scan, ultrasound, and blood tests. Peter and I waited outside. I was so nervous that I squeezed my hands, which were wet with sweat. Peter silently and gently grabbed my hand. The warmth coming from him calmed me down a bit. A few hours passed like an eternity. Finally, the professor called us in. He held the new results in his hand. He looked at Mom, then at me, and smiled. "Congratulations to you and the whole family." My heart stopped. "Professor, what does that mean?" "There are no cancer cells in your body," the professor said clearly. "It was a misdiagnosis." "A misdiagnosis? That means it was a terrible mistake?" He shook his head. "The results from the previous hospital were wrong. You only had symptoms similar to hypoglycemia and severe exhaustion caused by excessive stress. Those results must have belonged to another patient. A terrible mistake." Hearing this, Mom swayed and her eyes rolled back. She fainted on the spot. "Mom!" I screamed. The nurses quickly ran over. The professor calmed us down. "She'll be fine. It's just shock from joy. She'll rest and recover." When Mom was moved to the observation room, I couldn't stand on my feet anymore. I buried my head in Peter's chest and burst into tears. I had never cried like this in my life. All the fear and sadness suppressed for the last 6 months poured out of me at once. "Honey, Mom. Mom is healthy. It wasn't cancer, honey." Peter hugged me tightly. I felt his chest tremble with emotion. He stroked my hair. "I knew it. Everything ended well. Everything is fine. Don't cry anymore." That was the happiest day of my life. My crazy decision made in the cafe had not only brought Mom joy, but also saved her life. And this ordinary man, my husband, turned out to be a blessing and a guardian angel for our family. After the visit to the Vita Center, a new chapter opened in my life. The greatest fear that had squeezed my heart for the last 6 months vanished like a soap bubble. Mom was truly healthy. It wasn't cancer, but an illness born from excessive concern and imagination. And the man who scattered those black clouds was none other than my ordinary husband, Peter. Mom, having learned she was healthy, seemed 10 years younger. She stopped coughing. Her complexion gained color. She started exercising in the morning with the neighbors, and her voice became loud. She treated Peter like her own son, and every weekend she invited us over for delicious, strengthening dishes she cooked for her dear son-in-law. My feelings for Peter also changed. It was no longer just simple gratitude for helping fulfill my daughterly duty. It was admiration and respect flowing from the bottom of my heart. He was quiet, but showed everything with actions. He said he had a friend in the hospital. He quietly organized everything and paid for the tests. When I asked how much it cost, he just waved his hand and said his friend helped and it didn't cost much. He brought a miracle to our family. I considered getting such a husband a blessing for 3 generations. I no longer cared whether he was rich or poor, an orphan or not. I decided I had to be the good wife he deserved. I devoted myself heart and soul to arranging our little nest in the old building. From the $20,500 salary he gave me, I scrupulously planned expenses. I got up early in the morning, went to the market, chose the freshest vegetables and the best meat. I learned that he liked baked cod, and I studied how to prepare it even tastier. Our meals weren't exquisite. Tomato soup, salads, simple scrambled eggs. But it was always warm and heartfelt. The sight of him, sweaty after work, eating his meal with an appetite made me happy. Happiness was just that simple. After eating, he wanted to wash the dishes again. "You do crafts all day. Your hands are tired. I'll do it." I pushed him away, saying, "You're the one tired after a whole day of work. Sit on the sofa and watch the news." Our couple argued over washing up until finally we started doing it together. He washed, I dried. In the small kitchen, it was always full of laughter. I noticed that all his work shirts were already worn out. With the money earned in the studio, I secretly bought fabric and sewed him a few new ones. That evening, blushing slightly, I handed him the shirts. "I sewed them myself. Try them on. See if they fit." Peter stiffened. He took the shirt and looked at the careful seams. Without a word, he took off his old shirt and put on the new one. It fit perfectly like it was made to measure. He stood before the old mirror, looked at himself from every side, and then turned to me. His gaze was strangely warm. "Thank you. It's truly beautiful," he said. And then he did something I didn't expect. He came over and embraced me very lightly but very firmly. "Anna, it's so good that you're here." My heart was pounding like a hammer. That was the first time he had hugged me himself. I buried my head in his chest and inhaled the familiar salty smell of sweat. I felt that I had truly become a wife. Our life went on. He still slept on the sofa, and I in the room. But the invisible distance between us seemed to have vanished. One Sunday afternoon, as we were bustling about cleaning the house, someone knocked on the door. Mom never knocked. She would shout loudly from the bottom of the stairs. Peter and I looked at each other, surprised. Who besides Mom would visit us in this rented apartment? Peter opened the door. Outside stood a woman in her 50s. She wore a silk suit in a burgundy color. The cut was simple, but you could tell from the material that it was an expensive outfit. Her hair was elegantly pinned up, and she wore a pearl necklace. Her face seemed gentle, but her gaze was very penetrating. "Good afternoon. I'm a distant relative of Peter's, an aunt of sorts. I came from the country and heard he recently got married, so I dropped by for a visit." Her voice was gentle, but there was a certain authority in it. Peter stood frozen for a few seconds. An expression of embarrassment appeared on his face, but he quickly regained his composure. "Oh, Aunt, I didn't remember. Please come in." I hurriedly ran over and bowed politely. "Good afternoon, Aunt. Please come in. It's a bit of a mess here. Please excuse us." The woman smiled at me. It was a very gentle smile. "That's okay. So this is the new daughter-in-law. Your name is Anna, right? You're very pretty and look wise." She came inside and cast a glance at our cramped apartment. She looked at the old sofa, the creaking fabric wardrobe, and our modest, just-prepared meal. On the table were only spinach, fried tofu, and kimchi. "Is this where you live?" she asked. "Yes," Peter scratched his head. He looked like the most ordinary office worker. "We just got married and are having financial difficulties. For now, we live here. I'm an orphan, so there's no one to help me." "I see," she nodded and turned to me. "And your parents, Anna?" "I only have my mom. She lives in the neighboring building," I answered quickly and went to brew tea. "Aunt, please have some warm tea." When I handed her the tea, she sat me beside her and grabbed my hand. It was very warm and soft. She asked me various things. What do I do? Is work in the studio hard? How did I meet Peter? I told her everything honestly about my work and that we met through a setup. Of course, I didn't mention Mom's illness or that we married in a hurry. I only said that we liked each other right away. The aunt nodded while listening. "This girl is truly sincere. Peter, you're lucky. You've found such a beautiful, resourceful girl who isn't afraid of hardships. In this day and age, it's hard to find one." Peter only smiled. "Yes, Anna is a good person, Aunt." She stayed for about an hour and stood up. "Okay, Aunt has to go now. I have a few things to take care of in the city. This is a small gift for the new daughter-in-law." She opened her purse and took out a red silk box. Inside was a jade bracelet. It was transparent, with a light green color, and the luster of the stone was dazzling. I don't know much about luxury items, but at first glance you could tell it was incredibly expensive, maybe even more expensive than my entire assets and my mother's combined. "Oh, Aunt, this," I said, surprised. "This is too valuable a thing. I don't dare accept it." "It's okay," she smiled. "It's a souvenir from Peter's grandmother. I was keeping it, and she told me to give it to her grandson's wife when he married. It will bring you luck, so please accept it." She tried to put the bracelet on my hand, but I hurriedly withdrew my hand. No, Aunt, really, there's no need. We are only distant relatives. How could I accept such an expensive gift from someone who suddenly appeared? Besides, in our situation, I couldn't wear it, and if I lost it, I wouldn't be able to pay it back. I refused firmly. I believed that since we lived in a rented room, we couldn't afford such valuable items. Although this woman was a relative, she was a distant one. I didn't dare accept such a grand gift from someone who had suddenly appeared. Mom always taught me not to be greedy. Peter also intervened. Yes, Aunt, please take it back. We're still young. We can manage on our own. Please put that toward your retirement. Thank you for the good intentions. Seeing that we both firmly refused, the aunt looked at me for a long time and then smiled. That smile seemed very satisfied. Okay, I understand. She put the bracelet away. This girl is not greedy. Very good. She said goodbye and left. Peter and I escorted her down the stairs. Only when her figure disappeared did I breathe a sigh of relief. Your distant aunt is probably very rich, but I haven't heard you mention such a relative. Peter looked at me and smiled. It was a smile I couldn't understand. Oh, I forgot about her. She's probably a very distant relative. In any case, you did well to refuse. Why do we need such expensive things? I believed him. It never even crossed my mind that this woman wasn't his distant aunt, but his biological mother and the chairwoman of the famous Dawson Group. Our life returned to normal, but something began to sprout in my heart. I no longer perceived Peter as a contract husband entered into for Mom's happiness. I began to be sincerely interested in him. I discovered that he had a habit of reading books late into the night. He said he was an ordinary office worker, but the books he read concerned economics and management, and some were thick volumes in English. When I asked, he said he wanted to expand his knowledge to find a better job in the future. For you. That answer aroused both pity and admiration in me. Every time I pricked myself with a needle at work, he always ran over in a panic, stuck on a Band-Aid, and blew on the sore finger, wrinkling his face as if it hurt him. The feeling didn't come like a storm. It came quietly, like spring rain, and soon completely soaked my heart. The decisive event took place on a certain Saturday afternoon. I set up a small stand at a weekend outdoor craft market. The weather was sunny, but suddenly black clouds rolled in and rain poured down. The downpour was so sudden that the makeshift tent didn't hold, and the wind tore it away. With a cry, I tried to shield the silk postcards and embroidered works with my own body. This was the fruit of my month's work and sweat. If everything got soaked, it would go to waste. People around scattered, each saving their belongings. In despair, I moved about, and tears mixed with the rain. Anna! Among the noise, rain, and shouts, I heard his voice. I raised my head. It was Peter. He ran like a storm. No raincoat, all soaked. Without a word, he immediately spread a large tarp and covered my things. What are you doing here? I was in shock. This place was dozens of miles from the company he mentioned. I was coming back from work and dropped by to see how you were doing, he shouted over the rain. Stand still. I'll do it. He fought the wind and the tarp alone. In the torrents of rain, he was wet as a mouse. The white shirt stuck to his body, revealing the outline of hard chest muscles. He didn't pay attention to it, focused only on covering my things. When finally everything was temporarily secured, he turned to me. He saw that I too was all wet and shivering with cold. He immediately took off his thin, wet jacket and threw it over my shoulders. Silly girl, why didn't you hide somewhere? You're all soaked. He scolded me, but his voice was full of concern. He pulled me under a nearby roof, wiped the water from his face with his hand, and then wiped mine. Are you cold? Let's go home quickly. He didn't ask a single word about my things. He only worried about me. On the way back, I sat on the back of his old moped. The rain stopped falling. I wore his wet jacket. But I still felt his warmth. I no longer held on to the luggage rack. I reached out my hands and firmly embraced him around the waist. His back stiffened for a moment, but then it relaxed. That evening, I made him drink 2 glasses of hot ginger tea. "If you catch a cold, you'll have to deal with me," I said with feigned anger. Wiping his hair with a towel, he sat motionless and looked at me. "I'm fine, and your things got very damaged." "Nothing happened to them," I smiled. "Thanks to you, you're my savior." That night, I lay in the bedroom. He still slept on the sofa, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about his figure running into the rain and how he worried about me. My heart was beating fast. I realized that I had fallen in love with this man, with this ordinary but good, sincere, and warm person. I fell in love. I loved my husband. Mom was healthy. My husband loved me. After the story at the market, how my husband saved my things in the rain, my studio started getting more orders. My life seemed perfect. I began to think that we would become a real family. Maybe we would even have a child. But this peace didn't last long. One evening, as I was browsing messages on a chat app, a notification from a group chat appeared. High school reunion, 12th anniversary of graduation. My heart squeezed. I entered the chat. The group had been created a few days ago, but I hadn't noticed it. The chat administrator and main organizer of the reunion was none other than Marcus White, my former boyfriend. Marcus, my painful first love. We had been together from senior year of high school until the end of college. 5 years of love. It seemed nothing would separate us, but after college, he got a job at a large financial firm, and I was still struggling with crafts. His parents came to me. They told me bluntly, "Our family will never accept a daughter-in-law as poor and with such an uncertain profession as you. Leave Marcus alone." Marcus ultimately chose success and listened to his parents. Breaking up with me, he said, "Anna, you can't eat love alone. Let's be realistic." 5 years had passed. The pain was gone, but the scar remained. I scrolled through the messages in the chat, mostly bragging. "Okay, I recently changed my car to a Mercedes. I have to show it off at the reunion." That was Kyle, the worst student in our class. "I'm picking the place. The Golden Pond restaurant is my brother's place. I'll rent the whole VIP room." That was Chloe, the school queen. "I heard Marcus was promoted to vice president. I'm jealous. You'll have to buy a round," Marcus replied. It's no big deal, guys. I'm still a happy single. Maybe at the reunion, there will be some old love who still misses me." After that was a winking emoji. I felt my cheeks burn. His arrogant attitude hadn't changed. Then, one of the girls tagged me. "Anna Sullivan, what have you been up to? Still playing artist with those crafts of yours? And did you get married?" I stiffened. What was I supposed to answer? That I got married? And when they ask who my husband is, that he's an ordinary office worker with a $1,500 salary, riding an old moped and living in an old apartment building. I realized that although I am very happy with Peter, in the eyes of the world, in the eyes of those old acquaintances, I am still a failure. A 30-year-old poor woman who married a poor husband, the thorn of an inferiority complex that had pricked me for the last 5 years suddenly pricked me painfully. "What happened? You have a long face." Peter, who had just come out of the shower, asked, seeing me sitting lost in thought. I got scared and quickly turned off the phone. "Oh, nothing much. I was just reading some stupid messages." But Peter had already seen. He saw the embarrassment on my face. "What happened? Don't hide it. Tell me." I hesitated. I didn't want to tell him about my past. Denied. I didn't want him to see that I felt inferior because of him and our life. But his steady gaze made it impossible for me to lie. I sighed and handed him the phone. I got an invitation to my high school reunion. My ex-boyfriend will be there too. Peter took my phone and didn't just browse the messages superficially. He read them very carefully. He read Kyle's and Chloe's bragging and Marcus's meaningful emoji. I held my breath watching him. I was afraid he'd get angry, that his pride would be hurt. But no, his face was calm. He gave me back the phone. "Do you want to go?" he asked lightly. I lowered my head. "I don't know. I don't have nice clothes, and I don't want them to ask about you," I muttered. I lacked self-confidence, and I hated myself for it. "Anna." He sat beside me and grabbed my hand. "Lift your head and look at me." I slowly raised my head. His gaze was very serious. "Are you happy?" His question surprised me. "Yes, of course. I'm very happy with you and Mom." "In that case, you have nothing to be ashamed of," he said firmly. "The past is the past. Now you're happy. You don't have to avoid anyone or prove anything to them. If you want to go, go, with your head held high." I was moved, but... And what am I supposed to do? Lie or tell the truth? They'll laugh at you. Peter smiled. That familiar smile calmed me down. "They'll laugh at me, not you, and I don't live for their praise or criticism. Just go, face it. You don't have to lie, but you don't have to brag either. Just be yourself." I thought about it for a long time. He was right. I was happy. Why should I be afraid? Avoiding it would mean I still have some feelings for Marcus and care about his words. No, I couldn't let him look down on me and my happiness. "Okay," I nodded. "I'll go, but you'll come with me. With you by my side, I'll be more confident." Peter seemed to hesitate for a moment. "I think I'll have to stay longer at work that day. Go first, and I'll pick you up after work. I promise." I was a bit disappointed, but I understood. His work was hard. I couldn't ask for more. "Okay, in that case, that's what we'll do. I'll go alone." The reunion took place on Saturday evening. I spent the whole afternoon picking out an outfit. I went through my closet, but I only had modest clothes made of natural materials. No shiny dresses or designer handbags. For a moment, I felt sad. But then I remembered Peter's words. I didn't have to be like them. I decided to wear my favorite silk suit in a jade color on which I had embroidered some lotus flowers myself. I put on light makeup. At least I looked neat and was myself. I told Peter I'd take a taxi, but in reality, I took the bus. I didn't want to waste money. The Golden Pond restaurant was located in the very center of the city. It shone brightly, a completely different world than my old walk-up. I took a deep breath, straightened up, and went inside. Anna Sullivan, over here!" Chloe, the former school queen, waved to me from the large VIP room. When I entered the room, the loud room went silent for a moment. More than 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. They measured me from head to toe as if I were some strange creature. Chloe wore a tight red dress and a sparkling diamond necklace. Kyle sat with one leg over the other, and his car keys lay ostentatiously on the table. Everyone sparkled, and the smell of perfume hung in the air. "Oh, Anna, you're still so modest," said Chloe. Her cold voice was the same as before. Sit down. I smiled and chose a seat in the farthest corner. The Vane party began. They didn't talk about children or family. They talked about the stock market, real estate, an upcoming trip to Europe, and who bought an apartment where. I sat quietly, trying to smile. I felt lonely like a fish out of water. "Hey, Anna." Kyle suddenly turned to me. "What's up with you? Still playing artist with those crafts of yours? Does that even sell?" "I earn enough to survive, Kyle," I replied. "Enough to survive." Chloe curled her lips. In this city, you can't live on that. And did you get married? Or do you still have high standards and are alone? All gazes turned toward me again. I knew the time of judgment had come. I got married, I said quietly. Oh, you got married, everyone whispered. Chloe leaned forward. And who is your husband? The CEO of some company? Why didn't he come with you? What kind of car did you drive? Did you park downstairs? Questions fell like hail. I was suffocating. I didn't know what to answer. Just at that moment, when I was most embarrassed, the door to the VIP room opened. A man entered. He wore a navy blue luxury suit. The white shirt without a tie with 2 unbuttoned top buttons gave him an elegant yet slightly nonchalant look. On his wrist was a gold Rolex watch, and his hair was carefully combed back. It was Marcus. In the room, especially among the girls, there was a commotion. Our vice president is here. Chloe hurriedly stood up and gave Marcus her seat next to her. Marcus, you look great. I heard you recently signed a contract for several $100 million. Marcus smiled, a smile I knew so well, an arrogant one. It's no big deal. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I just finished a meeting. He greeted everyone, and then his gaze stopped on me in the corner of the room. He ran his eyes over my silk suit and face with light makeup. Anna, he spoke up, long time no see. You haven't changed at all. I knew it wasn't a compliment. It meant you're still simple and poor. Hi, I tried to smile. You've changed a lot. You've achieved great success. Congratulations. Marcus raised the corner of his mouth. He stood up and walked toward me, ignoring Chloe's jealous look. He sat in the seat next to me. I heard you got married. He lowered his voice, pretending to be tender. Yes, I replied, moving away slightly. The smell of his expensive perfume irritated me. Why did you hurry so much? Marcus laughed. I thought you were still mad at me and waiting for me. I felt blood rush to my head. You're too self-confident. That's in the past. Now, I live very well. You live well? Marcus repeated. There was mockery in his voice. I heard you married some office worker from an old apartment building. Anna. He suddenly lowered his voice. I once made a mistake. I didn't have the courage to protect you. But now I'm different. Look, I can give you everything you want. He stared at me. You're struggling with those crafts and living in a cramped apartment. Aren't you tired? Do you think that's worth anything? His words were like a knife stabbing into my heart. Yes, I live in an old apartment building. Yes, I work hard, but I wasn't tired, and I didn't think what I was doing was worthless. I'm not tired, I answered firmly. At least my husband is a good man. He respects me and my work. A good man? Marcus snorted with laughter. Anna, in this day and age, you can't eat being good. If you're good but can't provide your wife with a prosperous life, then you're a failure. Suddenly he reached out his hand, wanting to place it on my shoulder. If you regret it, tell me. I jumped up and pushed his hand away. Excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. I ran out of the room. My heart was pounding like crazy. I felt sorry for him. His patronizing tone blossomed with me once before, but it also disgusted me that for a moment I hesitated and doubted my life. I stood in the bathroom and washed my face with cold water. I looked at myself in the mirror. Anna, you are happy. You have a wonderful husband. You can't give up. I took a deep breath, fixed my hair, and returned to the room. I didn't intend to run away. As soon as I entered, I heard Chloe's sharp voice. Anna has bad luck. So pretty, and she ended up with a poor guy and is just struggling. I heard he's some office worker with a starvation salary. Kyle added, Stupid. Just stupid. When Marcus had nothing, she was chasing after him. And when Marcus got rich, she married someone even poorer. And from that craft work, how much will she make? They're probably sitting in that apartment of theirs now and counting every penny. Laughter broke out. Marcus was silent, sipping wine. A look of triumph was on his face. And where is Anna's husband? Chloe mentioned my name again. He was supposed to come, and he's not here yet. He has nothing to wear to the party. Or maybe he's afraid to come and see that all his wife's friends are rich. He'll probably arrive on that beat-up moped of his. Mopeds aren't allowed in the underground parking of the Golden Pond. Kyle snickered again. I clenched my fists. My nails dug into my hand. I felt I couldn't stand it any longer. Just as I was about to stand up and say something, the door to the VIP room opened again. Everyone went silent. They thought it was a waiter. Peter entered. He wore the white shirt I had sewed for him and the black pants he wore to work. His hair was carefully combed, and in his hand, he held an old helmet. He must have parked the moped somewhere outside and came on foot. Compared to the luxury brands in this room, my husband looked very ordinary and out of place. An awkward silence fell in the room. People looked from him to me. In their eyes was open mockery and pity, but the moment I saw him, all my complexes disappeared. A familiar sense of security and warmth overwhelmed me. I didn't care what they thought. With a radiant smile, I stood up, ignoring all the looks, and quickly went over to him. "You're here," I said with joy, taking the helmet from him. "Did you finish work?" "Yes, I finished." Peter smiled at me. It was a gentle smile. "Sorry I'm late. I'm Peter Dawson, Anna's husband." He bowed politely and said hello. Kyle broke the silence, snorting. "So, you're the husband. Where do you work that you finish at this hour? Since you work so hard after hours, the salary must be huge." "I'm an ordinary office worker. It's a small company, so there's quite a bit of work." Peter still answered calmly. "And how did you get here?" Chloe asked with a smirk. "I didn't see your car downstairs." "I came by moped. I left it on the street nearby," Peter answered honestly. "Oh my God, a moped!" Chloe screamed as if it were a crime against humanity. Just then, Marcus stood up. With a glass of wine, he approached Peter. He was a bit taller than him, and his posture betrayed arrogance and a sense of superiority. "Good evening," said Marcus in an arrogant tone. "I'm Marcus, Anna's best friend and former boyfriend, and you are her husband." He deliberately emphasized the words, former boyfriend. Peter raised his head and looked Marcus straight in the eyes. He didn't flinch. "Yes, I'm Peter Dawson, Anna's husband. Nice to meet my wife's friends." His voice was still calm, but there was a strange firmness in it. Marcus smiled with a corner of his mouth. "Peter," he raised his glass, "I truly don't understand how Anna could choose you. Look around. All of Anna's friends have achieved success, and you—" He glanced over Peter's shirt and the helmet in my hand. "Anna is a good woman," Marcus continued in a patronizing tone. "She deserves the best. She should live in a villa, drive a luxury car, and wear brand-name clothes, not struggle in an old walk-up. She shouldn't worry about money with some ordinary office worker." The air in the room became heavy, and then Marcus turned to me. "Anna, I once made a mistake. I chose success, but now I have everything. Look at me. Divorce this guy and come back to me. I'll give you the life you dream of." "Marcus!" I screamed. I was shaking with rage, but before I could add anything, Marcus turned back to Peter. "And what can you give her? A $2,500 salary? Or that beat-up moped? Do you have the courage to admit that you're a failure who can't take care of his own wife?" "Stop it!" I screamed. My scream made everyone flinch. I stepped forward, shielding Peter and facing Marcus. "Shut up! What right do you have to insult my husband?" I was shaking not from fear, but from rage. "You have money, a car, and a vice president position. And so what? Does that make you a better person?" I turned to the frozen friends. You too, bragging about Mercedes and restaurants, so what? Do you want to prove you're better than others? Are you truly happy? Or maybe every night you argue about money and infidelities? A grave silence fell in the room. I turned back to Marcus. Sparks flew from my eyes. Yes, my husband is not rich. He rides an old moped. He lives in a rented room, and his salary is only $20,500. And so what? My voice became sharp. He gives me his entire salary, not hiding a single penny. Can you do that? When I was at the market and the rain poured down, he, wet as a mouse, ran into the downpour to save my crafts. Where were you then? When my mother was sick, he patiently sat beside her, fixed a broken fan, and listened to her complaints. Can you do that? And when I was in the greatest despair, thinking my mother had terminal cancer, it was he who quietly found the best doctor, drove her to the hospital, and tore her from the clutches of death. Can you do that for all your damn money? Tears flowed from my eyes. You can take those millions and shove them. I don't need them. You said you can't eat love alone. You're wrong. Real love is what most nourishes a person. I shouted words flowing from the depths of my heart. My happiness doesn't lie in money. I turned and firmly grasped Peter's still warm hand. My happiness is this man, this human being. I pulled his hand. Let's get out of here. It's too dirty here. I turned around, leaving Marcus standing in stupor with a glass of wine in his hand and 20 people in shock, and pulled Peter behind me. We left the Golden Pond restaurant. The cool night air hit me in the face. My anger subsided, and I came to my senses. I still firmly held Peter's hand and pulled him. I walked quickly, as if escaping from this place full of vanity and falsehood. Only when we reached the other side of the street, at the parking lot where he had left his old moped, did I stop. As the anger subsided, fear and shame seized me. What did I just do? I shouted at my ex-boyfriend and all my high school friends. But more importantly, I shouted out loud my husband's entire poor situation. Surely he is angry. Pride is so important to a man, and I publicly humiliated him. I slowly let go of his hand. I didn't have the courage to look him in the face. Peter, I'm sorry, I muttered. I didn't mean to. I was just so angry. I'm sorry for letting them insult you. I lowered my head. Tears began to drip. I was a bad wife. Instead of protecting my husband, I exposed him to ridicule. I waited for a scolding. I waited for the words, "I'm ashamed of you." But nothing happened. I only felt strong arms embracing me. Peter hugged me. He embraced me so tightly that it took my breath away. He buried his face in my hair, and I felt his shoulders tremble. He was crying. I was in shock. I tried to raise my head to look at his face. His eyes were red and full of tears. My husband, always calm, always strong, was crying. What happened? Are you angry with me? I asked, frightened. Peter shook his head and took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. He wiped the tears from my cheek with his thumb. Anna, you're a silly girl. His voice was hoarse. What are you apologizing for? He looked at me. In his deep eyes, an emotion was reflected that I had never seen before. It was something more than love, deep emotion and respect. I've been searching all my life, he whispered, still in a trembling voice, to hear exactly those words from you. What words? I asked, confused. For a woman, he said, without taking his eyes off me, who will tell the whole world she loves me. For a woman who will say she loves me even when I have nothing, when I'm an ordinary office worker on an old moped. But it's true, I said. I love you, not for what you have, but for who you are. Peter smiled a happy smile, and yet somehow a sad one. He hugged me again. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for defending me. Thank you for choosing me. He let me go and put the helmet on me. Let's go home. My wife was wonderful today. I sat on the back of his moped and firmly embraced him around the waist. The old engine sputtered. I leaned my head against his back and felt his heart beating, still accelerated. I didn't quite understand the meaning of his words. I only knew that after I shouted tonight that happiness doesn't lie in money, something between us had changed forever. I defended my man, and he was deeply moved by it for some reason. The old moped brought us home. I still firmly embraced him from behind, burying my face in his hard back. My anger was gone. My shame had also passed. In my heart, only a swelling feeling of love remained. I defended my man, and he cried because of me, because of my words. The air between us truly changed. It was no longer gratitude, respect, or budding love. It was an unbreakable bond forged in fire. I felt that from tonight, we had become a real married couple. The moped stopped in front of the old walk-up. When he turned off the engine, a night silence surrounded us. I got off the moped and took off the helmet, handing it to him. I thought he'd park and we'd go up to our cozy attic, but he didn't. He stood motionless, not looking at me. He looked into the void before him. In the faint light of the street lamp, I clearly saw the tension on his face. He was gripping the handlebars so hard, his knuckles turned white. "What happened?" I asked quietly. "Let's go upstairs." Peter turned to me. In his eyes, there was no longer the same emotion as in the restaurant. There was suffering, determination, and fear in them that I had never seen before. "Anna," his voice was hoarser than before. "I have to tell you something." My heart stopped. "What is it? Are you angry that I let everything out at the party?" "I'm sorry." "No, that's not it," he interrupted me. "What you did was the best thing that ever happened to me. But because you did that, I can't deceive you any longer." "Deceive me?" My heart was beating even faster. "Deceive me? What do you mean?" Hundreds of thoughts flew through my head. He had a wife? No, impossible. He had debts? Or maybe he was sick. Peter took a deep breath like someone before a very important task. "Anna, I'm sorry," he said. "I deceived you. From the first day we met." I felt dry in the throat. "Speak clearly." He closed his eyes for a moment, and then he opened them and looked me straight in the face. "I'm not an orphan." I stiffened. "You're not an orphan? That means you have a family?" "Yes, I have a mother." I was confused. "You have a mother? Then why? Why did you lie to me and my mother that you were an orphan? Why were you afraid that we would be a trouble for your mother?" "No," he hurriedly shook his head. "It's not what you think. My mother really wants to meet you." "Your mother wants to meet me?" I understood less and less. "That lady who visited us." "Yes," Peter nodded with an expression of guilt on his face. "That distant aunt who visited us at home is my biological mother." My head spun. "Your mother? Why? Why did you both play such a scene? What did I do wrong? Did she not like me? And that's why you lied that you were an orphan, to make it easier for you to marry me?" I began to be seized by fear of what complicated family intrigue I had gotten entangled in. "On the contrary." Peter grabbed me by the shoulders. "Anna, listen to me. My mother liked you very much and is very satisfied with you. It's precisely because she is so satisfied that I feel even more guilty." "I don't understand anything, Peter." I burst into tears. "Tell me the truth. Who are you actually? Why did you have to invent such a huge lie?" I thought that was already the biggest confession. I thought he was an ordinary office worker who lied about being an orphan to hide a complicated family situation. But I was wrong. Peter looked at me. Thousands of apologies were reflected in his eyes. I'm not an ordinary office worker, and I don't live in a rented room. This house, this moped, all of it is fake. I froze. Anna, his voice trembled. Come with me. I'll show you the truth. I'll show you who I really am. I don't know how I followed him. I was like a sleepwalker. My brain refused to accept the information. Fake? Everything fake. Was his love fake too? His concern too? I didn't follow him to the attic. He took me to the end of the alley of the old walk-up, where it joined the main road. I still walked as if in a fog. He stopped on the shoulder, took out his phone, and made a call. I'm here. He said only that. A minute later, a shining black luxury sedan drove up quietly and stopped right in front of us. I didn't know what brand it was. I only knew it was a car I couldn't even dream of. A man in a chauffeur's uniform got out, opened the back door, and bowed at a 90-degree angle. Mr. Chairman, Madam, please get in. Chairman, Madam. I looked at the chauffeur and then at Peter. Peter didn't look at me. To me, see, he grabbed my hand. It was ice cold. Get in, Anna. He pulled me into the car. The interior was upholstered in soft leather and was so luxurious that I was afraid to breathe more loudly. The car moved soundlessly, smoothly, completely differently from the sputtering moped I was used to. Who are you? I stammered. My voice didn't sound like mine. Peter didn't answer, only firmly squeezed my hand. The car drove for a long time. We drove through the city center and entered a wealthy neighborhood I only saw on TV. There were many trees, it was unusually quiet, and every house looked like a palace. The car stopped in front of a huge, artistic iron gate. The gate opened automatically, and the car entered a gravel avenue. Beautiful gardens stretched on both sides, and then a dazzling white villa appeared before my eyes. It was much larger than the Golden Pond restaurant. My heart stopped. The chauffeur opened the door again. Peter led me outside. With trembling legs, I walked on the marble floor. The huge wooden doors of the villa opened. A woman greeted us, the same distant aunt. But today she didn't have on a simple silk suit, but a luxurious velvet gown, and her high-pinned hair and posture emanated an unhidden dignity of an aristocrat. Behind her, in 2 rows, stood servants in uniforms with bowed heads. "Aunt," I muttered. The woman smiled gently, approached, and grabbed my other hand. "Welcome, Anna. Last time we met in a hurry, and I didn't have a chance to introduce myself properly. Allow me to do it now. I'm Elizabeth, Peter's biological mother." She turned to Peter. In her eyes, love and reprimand mixed. "Peter, you frightened our Anna." And then she turned back to me. "Come in, please, daughter-in-law." Daughter-in-law. I swayed. I turned to the man I called my husband. "Peter, what is this all supposed to mean? Explain to me where we are and who you are." Peter looked at me. Guilt was reflected in his eyes. He took a deep breath. "Anna, I'm sorry. My name is Peter Dawson. It's true, but I'm not an office worker." He paused for a moment and then revealed the final truth. "I'm Peter Dawson, the chairman of the Dawson Group, and the Vida Medical Center, where your mother was treated, is part of our group." The Dawson Group, a name everyone in this city knew, a leading concern in real estate, finance, and medicine, one of the largest in the country. My husband with a $20,500 salary, was the chairman of a giant conglomerate. My head was bursting. Everything was spinning. The truth was too shocking, too cruel. I remembered myself at the high school reunion. My husband earns $20,500 and rides an old moped. Oh God, I was an idiot. I made a clown of myself before everyone. He stood there and heard everything I said. He and his whole family treated me like a stupid toy and watched the show. A sense of betrayal, shame, and anger swallowed love. "You deceived me!" I screamed, tearing my hand away from him. Tears flowed from my eyes, but they were tears of rage. You treated me like a toy. It was a game for the rich to check the heart of a poor girl. You must have had a great time watching my performance. I ran out of that villa. I couldn't stay there a second longer. Anna, stop! Let me explain! Peter shouted, running after me. He was faster than me. He caught me by the arm in the middle of the garden. I started to struggle and hit him in the chest. Let go of me, you fraud. You disgust me. Give me back my ordinary life. Give me back my husband for $1,500. I don't need any chairman. I don't need it, I sobbed. Anna, listen to me. He held me firmly. My feelings were real. I didn't deceive you about that. Real? I snorted. Real? And you staged such a theater. Who do you take me for? Child, calm down. Elizabeth also approached. She wasn't angry at all. Only compassion was reflected in her eyes. You also deceived me, I sobbed. You came to our house. You looked at our modest meal, at our poor apartment. I must have seemed very pathetic to you. And then you tested me with that jade bracelet. When I didn't accept it, you were satisfied. Is that how you treat people? Silence fell. My words were too sharp, too painful. Elizabeth sighed. Anna, I'm sorry. I should have stopped Peter. But do you know how many women he met before he met you? They came to him, said they loved him, but their eyes were only on his credit cards and wealth. Peter was deceived in love and stopped believing in it. She looked at Peter with pity. That's why he decided to hide his identity and pretend to be an ordinary man. He wanted to find someone who would love him sincerely, not for money. I thought he was crazy. Where in this day and age would he find such a woman? Elizabeth looked at me, and then, Peter found you. Peter continued his mother's words. Anna, that day in the cafe, when you said you had to get married quickly and pulled out the documents, I also thought you were just like them, that you only cared about money. But you said it was because of your sick mother, that a good, ordinary person was enough for you. You didn't ask how much I earn or where I live. He wiped the tears from my cheek. I decided to take a risk. I created an image of the poorest man possible. I wanted to see how long you would last. And you, his voice broke, you not only lasted, but you thrived. You worked hard in your studio. With the money you earned, you sewed me a shirt. You didn't complain for a single moment. You worried about me and were happy with a bowl of tomato soup. I don't know when I started to love you, Anna. I fell in love with your goodness, your love for your mother, and your lack of attachment to material things. And that bracelet, Elizabeth said. I tested you voluntarily. I made a mistake. But when you firmly refused, I knew Peter had found the right person. You're truly a good girl, Anna. Then why didn't you tell me the truth? I sobbed. I wanted to tell you, Peter answered. I wanted to tell you when your mother got healthy. But today at the high school reunion, he looked at me. Anna, when you shouted before that Marcus that happiness doesn't lie in money, do you know how much that moved me? You defended me. You defended a helpless husband for $2,500. You chose me, not his money. You proved to me that true love exists. I didn't want to deceive you any longer. He embraced me. I'm sorry it started with a lie, but my love for you, my respect for you, are real, realer than anything in this world. Forgive me, Anna. I stood quietly in his embrace. The anger subsided. I looked at myself. I also deceived him. I married him not out of love, but out of a daughter's duty. I also started this marriage with a certain goal. I remembered him saving my things in the rain, patiently fixing Mom's fan, worrying when I cut my finger. I remembered his tears tonight. These feelings couldn't be fake. His identity was fake, but his love was real. I raised my head and looked into his deep eyes. Your feelings for me are really real? Real, he said firmly. I laughed. Tears were still flowing. Why didn't you say so earlier? I was saving money to buy you a new moped. Peter also laughed. He wiped away my tears. I'll keep that moped. It's our souvenir. Thank you, honey. Elizabeth smiled. Okay, you two stop it now and come inside. I've prepared hot chocolate for my daughter-in-law. A year later, in the same villa, but no longer cold, but very warm, in the garden, my mother, now like a sister with my mother-in-law, Elizabeth, laughing, tended to the flowers. Mom moved here and lived with us. Both ladies became like sisters. I was sitting on a swing. My belly was already quite large. I was knitting a tiny baby outfit. Peter came out of the house. He no longer wore suits. He wore the white shirt I had sewed for him last year. Knitting again? You'll ruin your eyesight. He came over and embraced my shoulders and bulging belly. Today our little one isn't kicking? He's kicking. I smiled and leaned my head against his shoulder. As hard as you when you ran into the rain. He kissed my hair. Thank you for creating a family for me. I looked at Mom, at Elizabeth, and at the husband beside me. My life was like a dream, but it wasn't a dream. It started with a lie for the sake of a mother and met with a lie in search of true love. The words, happiness doesn't lie in money, are eternally true. But when money falls into the hands of a husband with a warm heart, it helps protect and nurture that happiness for longer. And I, Anna Sullivan, found the world's most valuable husband for $2,500.